Hello there, welcome back to the channel. This is Nerdled Empire, and today we're covering the Dove. This vessel lacked the prefix of USS or a registry number that we could identify, but presumably it did have them, just didn't really display them. The nature of this vessel is a quasi-civilian ship, or at least perhaps non-military vessel, which I'm gonna call it, right, Starfleet, all protestations aside, is a military organization. They may primarily focus on exploration and science, but the military does that as well. It is simply a changing face to an old war dog. That's all. And this ship fits a niche within that. Ever since humanity began, there has been war. One of the side effects of war is the effects on the people that participate in it. They used to call it shell shock. Then it evolved into post-traumatic stress disorder, and generally an unpleasant after effect of being involved in combat. This necessitates the existence of medical personnel attached to the military, and that's where Starfleet Medical comes in, and yes, that's why ships like this would exist. The Dove was basically a starship mobile spa. Doesn't pretend to be anything other than that. It was unlikely that it carried any weaponry of any kind. I would go as far to say it didn't even carry a single phaser. Just to interject myself, looking back at this, these could be phasers, maybe. This ship didn't need weapons, so it simply didn't have them. I will say it was almost certainly equipped with shields, because shields are useful for not only defending against weapons and attack, but they're also useful in defense against spatial phenomena, atmospheric incursion, solar flares, meteorites, all kinds of things. Basically, shields are useful for a multitude of purposes, so this ship will have had shields. Its hull will have been a standard plating, it won't have been armoured, so this was not a combat vessel. On board, it had health spas of various kinds, medical facilities of various kinds, but it was mostly a mental and physical relaxation and recovery centre and mobile spa. It basically moved from sector to sector of Federation space, and people came there for basically a mini vacation and to unwind and receive a little bit of psychotherapy and mud treatment to help them along. The ship will have likely had holodecks, which I'll get to in just a moment as a little theory. We do know that they had mud pits, which used mud that was actually imported directly from Teller Prime. No, none of that synthetic earth mud or anything like that. No imitation, only the best mud. They were able to customize different suites aboard the ship to entertain different guests, including Klingons who like target practice, things of this nature. This ship was warp capable, and was size-wise is a little hard to say, but judging by the vessels that were stationed near to it when we did see it, it's probably rivaling a Galaxy-class starship, but that could be just forced perspective of seeing the vessel. It depends on where the other ships were in relation to it, so that's a complete guess. I'm not sure. It should be noted that this vessel had another Edosian captain known as Toz, or at least some kind of administrator. This person did not wear a Starfleet uniform, but was clearly a Federation officer of some kind, which is why I say this vessel may have been attached in some way to civilian organizations, and although owned and operated by Starfleet Medical, it was not a mainstream Starfleet vessel. Now we do know that there are different branches of Starfleet that own and operate their own ships for different purposes. This vessel is one of the ships operated by Starfleet Medical. Now this brings into question, now this is now identified as at least three different distinct categories of hospital ship of some kind operated by Starfleet Medical. You've got the standard hospital ships like the Olympic class, you've got the sort of pickup transport vessels we've seen before, and now this, a recuperation ship. It makes sense. You've got a mobile hospital, an ambulance, and some kind of recuperation, rather than always having to take people to a place like a planetary base of some description. You basically bring the spa to them. Makes a bit of sense. The ship is very impressive in its wide range of facilities on board it, all designed to entertain and relax a wide variety of personnel. Now I say the ship will have had holodecks because pretty much all Federation ships by this time would have had holodecks, so that wouldn't be shocking. They are noted that they used puppy therapy. Now puppy therapy and kitten therapy, people playing with small cute animals, has been shown to sort of boost endorphins and basically make people feel good and basically put you in a good mood. Question is, how often was this ship travelling back to Earth or some Earth colony to drop off puppies when they got grown up, or were they just euthanizing them? And as the Federation's all humane, that's unlikely. Maybe they were feeding them to the Klingons. Also unlikely. Were they breeding them in cages aboard? Also unlikely. So I bet, my theory, those puppies, those bunnies, those kittens, they were holographic. We saw a similar technology used on the Jupiter station by Dr. Louis Zimmerman, who created holographic facsimiles of various different animals. It's entirely plausible that these animals were some kind of holographic or even isomorphic projections by 2382 when this vessel was encountered. How many of these ships Starfleet Medical operates? Unknown. Are they all commanded by an Eddosian commanding officer? Also unknown. Are these entire ships leased to the Eddosians? Unlikely. These ships were owned and operated by Starfleet Medical. How many they had, again, is unknown. When it was commissioned, unknown. And I'm sorry, that's pretty much all we have on this ship canonically. Tell me what you think about it. It was seen in 2382 when the USS Cerritos went there, and the ship's captain and engineering team went aboard for a little R&R to basically help the engineering team unwind after a little incident aboard the Cerritos that made everybody a little bit stressed. A few passive observations about the vessel itself. The nacelle design is pretty unusual, quite different to other Starfleet vessels, but in terms of basic geometry, the vessel is similar to some designs seen in the late 21st and through to the early and somewhat into the mid-22nd century. If you believe some beta canon sources about the designs of Earth vessels during the Earth-Romulan War, this ship has some basic hull geometry in common with them, with a sort of cylindrical rear section, sort of bolted together like feel of the ship. It also has a sort of cruise liner-like design, which is in keeping with it being a sort of luxury ship, a floating spa, literally, but basically its whole geometry is a little distinct from other Federation vessels of the era. Tell me what you think about the ship and your theories on just maybe how big some of the other divisions within Starfleet are, because one thing we're learning in the late 24th century is Starfleet's a much bigger and more complicated agency than we really gave it credit for. During the Dominion War, for example, we saw that Starfleet had teeth in the Defiant class. There is a small combat military effective core to Starfleet. We know that the Starfleet Marines do exist, that at one time obviously the Makos, and although they folded into Starfleet, they probably became the Starfleet Marines, and they still existed in the 24th century. And in other attached universes, by say 2409, we know that Makos re-existed within the Federation. We know that based on 2382, the Andorian Imperial Guard and some kind of descendant of, if not modern variation of, the Kumari class warship still exists. So we know that military agencies do exist. How they all interact with each other, we're just going to have to keep exploring. And just how big organizations these actually are is still up for debate. I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.